Hi, my name is Kaylee Stubing, and my project in PowerPoint is going to be over classroom management. Next, we are going to have a brief overview of what I'm going to talk about. First will be identity, and this is going to show my passion and knowledge for my question and for becoming an educator. Second is significance of inquiry, which is going to be why it's important to find out information or question things or find research. Then my problem statement is going to be the question I have. The literature review is going to be my research, and I have narrowed it down into these 4 categories. Then is going to be the method and data, which is going to be my findings and implications, which is going to be why it's important. Lastly are going to be the questions that I asked. First is our identity. Our identity is unique to us personally, and they are features that contribute to the classroom specifically. These are going to be our background, our characteristics, our culture, morals, and beliefs. These make us unique and help us gain trust in children and build relationships that will actually build their skills in knowledge. Next, we have passion, and for me, passion and vocation are about the same thing. Vocation is basically what you are meant to do with your life, and as soon as I realized I wanted to work with kids, I knew that I wanted to be a teacher and have never looked back. There are a lot of things that drive me to do this. A lot of them are my history with children and my experiences with clinical teaching. I have worked in a pediatrician's office for the last 6 years, which have shown me different encounters with children that just shouldn't happen. And so I would like to be there for the kids any way possible. Lastly, there are obstacles that, of course, are in everyone's way. A few of my obstacles have actually proven to be more that this is what I want to do because I have not given up. Some of my obstacles are working a full-time job, being at school full-time, having 2 kids, having a husband, a dog, a house, having had numerous surgeries in the last few years, deaths in family members, the list could go on, but my drive has made me not give up. Next is going to be my knowledge. This is going to include my past experiences, which just shows more validation that I'm on the correct path. Simple things like this picture right here, which is going to be equality versus equity, which sounds like such a simple thing, but looking at it this way will help anybody in the future be able to see something like this in their classroom and help. So to just elaborate really quick, we can see that equality means equal. Every kid here in the left picture is giving the equal opportunity with equal boxes, equal sizes. And the kids on the right are given the same boxes, the same amount of boxes, the same height, but they're distributed differently. This is going to give help where it's needed, which is actually equity and the way we should be teaching. Next, we were to talk about the significance of inquiry. So why is it important? So research, we should never stop learning. We should always be looking for ways to better ourselves. We should always be learning from others. We should never be too proud. We should be looking for new techniques and being open-minded, such as pedagogy, which is something I had never heard of before, but is amazing that we thought of something so simple that we could just have students basically teach themselves through inquiry, through just asking questions and learning things, being hands-on and whatnot, as well as teaching multiple contents, which is actually what the definition of interdisciplinary studies is. We need to be able to teach anything and everything at any moment, not just focus in on one thing. If you're in math class, you can only talk about math. We need to be able to have an open mind and teach about anything that comes up. So the problem statement: what do I want to know? What do I need help with? My research question that I believe was specific to myself was, what is the most effective way to manage a successful classroom that effectively promotes learning while minimizing room for behavior issues? Next is the literature review, answering my research question. My focus topics were praise and punishment, classroom rules and expectations, teaching styles, and communication. First is praise and punishment. Punishment is reactive. If we're punishing someone, it's because something was done and we are already behind. We need to focus on the positives, not only the negatives. Use behavior-specific praise. We can use devices and student responsibility for this. An example is going to be, have I been reading silently for 3 minutes? Again, you see the positive in this. This also controls how many times students are walking up to you asking questions over and over. Also, put in work in the beginning leads to a better outcome down the road. More on praise and punishment. Learning how to handle behavior issues with the acting out cycle, something I learned from the Iris Center. As you can see here, the roller coaster, it goes from calm to the trigger, intensity builds, there's agitation, acceleration, and then the child hits their peak until finally de-escalation and recovery. An important outtake that I got from this was to be open with the students, to set goals, to stay positive, even speaking with the other students and letting them know that this student at question was having a difficult time, and to just give them some space and give them positive support. Next is classroom rules and expectations, which I thought was super, super helpful. It is important to set clear rules with high expectations. Come up with a set of class rules. No more than 7 is recommended. Again, keep positive. Don't make the rules say, don't yell in class. Instead, use your inside voice. Means the same thing, but is in a positive way, which in turn should lead to positive outcomes. It is important to post the rules or give handouts. Optional for younger children, you should use pictures. An important one is to practice the rules. Optional could be daily practice, which is something I think I would implement in my classroom. Then there are 4 major themes per research that is important to include in your classroom rules. 1 is going to be compliance with adults. 2, managing verbal behaviors. 3, appropriate recruitment from teacher attention, which is basically what I was talking about earlier, not having all the students coming up to you at once. And then lastly, work preparedness and work completion. Also, I know we had to talk about punishment, but we have to set consequences. And so actually, consequences don't have to be a punishment and have to be something negative. You can actually turn it back into a positive. For example, you can have the student practice the rule that they broke. Lastly, and most importantly, is be consistent. Next, there is going to be 4 teaching styles that I discuss. The first is going to be authoritative, and that is setting high expectations, having clear statements about what is acceptable and not acceptable. The second one is authoritarian, which is when the students have no say in their management. The teacher is perceived as being cold. The teacher uses punishment. 3 is permissive, which is going to be the teacher's lack of involvement in the students. And then there is a few demands on the students and a lot of freedom. Lastly, number 4 is indulgent. This is when there are no demands on the students and the students seek their own ends using any reasonable means. Teaching styles continued. Again, like I said before, it is good to be proactive and not reactive. A phrase that I've heard a lot is play chess, not checkers. You want to always be thinking of like 10 steps ahead, not just the next step. That is reactive, and you will already be swallowed whole by these children. The next is to always have a plan, which leads me to being organized, being prepared. Students need structure to feel comfortable. It would be good to have assigned tasks such as a line leader or a presenter for the days of the week, etc. It's good to be a leader that will gain you trust. It's also good to always continue learning, do the professional developments, it will help. Also, utilize your fellow peers. Next is going to be communication. It is very, 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 very important to the success of a student. And it should start with day one or even at parent orientation. Communicate frequently. Use technology if you are able to. That is the easiest. Highlight the strengths of the child. Don't just communicate the negatives. Parent and guardian and the teacher should always have the same goals for the student. Next is how I developed my plan. First, I wanted to gather the questions that I wanted to ask. I needed to gather my participants, which were going to be the research that I got from published teachers through my research. Teacher acquaintances. I kept the teacher acquaintances relatively close in similarities to gain the most accurate results. What I mean by that is I kept it to a small group per grade level, years experience, and then even the area or the district that the teachers taught in. My findings are here. The most common findings that I found in my research of this project were to be proactive, to be organized, to be positive, to have a plan, to have a structured routine, to teach in an authoritative style, to have clear rules, high expectations. Communication is vital. To know how to avoid negative behavior and how to deal with negative behavior if it occurs. The implications. So why all this was important. It was a reason for me to get out of my comfort zone. Also to ask important questions. Most importantly, it was to improve my classroom skills and gain confidence. What I was able to do is answer my question, which was to be able to effectively manage a successful classroom that effectively promotes learning while minimizing room for behavior issues. Lastly, of all the questions that I had, I only used the ones for the experienced teachers, which were, what is your most important classroom role or favorite classroom role? What verbal and nonverbal cues do you use for negative behaviors? In what ways are you proactive and prevent behavior problems from escalating? In what ways do you make relationships with your students' parents? What type of punishment do you use? Which is your teaching style? And that concludes my presentation. I feel very confident now to step into a classroom with possible bad behavior and how to control it or how to even keep it from happening, being proactive, having a plan, being organized, all of the above. Definitely glad I did this research. And I'm glad that I was able to find many answers to my question.